Two Chairs No Waiting, episode number 525, the eBullet, March 2019. Two Chairs No Waiting is brought to you each week by the fine folks over at WeaversDepartmentStore.com. Drop over to Weavers and check out some of the great Mayberry items they have there, including Mayberry Finest Coffee, Aunt Bee's Apple Pie T-shirt. You need T-shirts for summer. It's time. And you might want to get the Mayberry Trivia book by Scott Hopkins. It's got over 1,500 trivia questions. Head over to WeaversDepartmentStore.com and check it out. Two Chairs No Waiting is also brought to you by donations from listeners just like you. The executive producer of episode number 525 is Jim Clark. Hello, everybody. I'm Alan Newsom, your host for Two Chairs No Waiting. And this episode, we're going to be talking about some of the information that was provided in the eBullet. Now, what is the eBullet? Now, if you don't know what the eBullet is, I feel bad for you, because as a Mayberry fan, you've got to know. The eBullet is the official newsletter of the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club, and Jim Clark, who is our executive producer, is the writer, developer, producer, publisher, everything about the eBullet, and he comes up with all this great information. So I definitely want to encourage you to go and check that out. Stick around. We're going to go over just a little bit in the eBullet. I want you to go and read for yourself and go and check out the online version. But we're going to just talk a little bit about some of the things that Jim has written for us and found out for us. But from the March 2019 episode edition. So let's get a little background music. There is so much information on the eBullet. There's just no way that you can possibly get it all here in the podcast. Just going through a few of the things. There is an event calendar, Floyd's Barbershop Bulletin Board event calendar, and just a few of the things in the event calendar that you should have already known about is, for instance, April the 11th. April the 11th, Karen Knotts is going to be heading to the hills with Tied Up in Knots up in Morgantown, North Carolina. So make sure you go and check that out. It's in the eBullet if you'd like to check that out. Let's see, Betty Lynn on the 19th of April is going to be at the Andy Griffith Museum signing autographs. Go and check that out as well. Friends, there's all kinds of things in here that you will not want to miss, including Betty appearing at the different events, including the one I just mentioned. She's also going to be on May the 4th. She's going to be featured on Those Were the Days, an old-time radio show hosted by Ken Alexander and Steve Darnell on Chicago's WDCB. That's 90.9 FM and 90.7 FM from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. That's Central Time. You can also listen at www.wdcb.org and listen to that. This special broadcast includes 3 old-time radio shows with performances by Betty, as well as an extensive pre-recorded interview with Betty. So this is something you will not want to miss. You're going to enjoy that. So go ahead and check it out there in the eBullet for information about that. Karen's going to be at Tied Up in Knots doing it as well, May the 9th through the 12th at the Heritage Music Hall at Crown Center in Kansas City, Missouri for 4 shows. That's right, 4 showtimes. Check that out. You've got the 6th annual Mayberry in the Midwest coming up May 17th through the 19th. Don't miss out on that one. Oh, my goodness. We're going to have Maggie Peterson. She's going to be there. Ronnie Shell, Margaret Carey. She'll be there. Dixie Griffith. That's Andy's daughter. And George Lindsay Jr. They're all going to be there. And guess what? The Grascals, the award-winning bluegrass band, they're going to be there as well. Was a whole bunch of tribute artists will be there to make the whole weekend a Mayberry-filled weekend, including the Mayberry Squad Car Nationals, where you'll see all kinds of Mayberry squad cars. Definitely come and check that out. That's in Danville, Indiana, May 17th through the 19th. Friends, there are so much going on. I'm going to be at the Mayberry in the Midwest. I'm going to be there. Then the next weekend, May 25th, Maggie Peterson and Rodney Dillard and the Dillard Band are going to be performing at Bluegrass Underground. That's right. It's going to be in a cave. It's billed as Mayberry Memories, the Andy Griffith Show celebration. It's at the Caverns in Pelham, Tennessee. David Browning, the Mayberry deputy, will also be on hand. I'm going to be there too, but just to watch, because I want to be there and enjoy myself. So my wife and I are going, and a whole bunch of other Mayberry fans. If you get a chance, join us. This ought to be fun. Getting to hear the Dillards and Maggie singing in a cave. That's something, I thought about going and hermitizing myself in that cave. So if you get a chance to go, definitely check that out. Go and check out the eBullet for more and more information. There's stuff, all kinds of things I'm not going into here. We'll go ahead and talk about July, because July 19th, Betty is going to be at the Andy Griffith Museum in Mount Airy. But the special thing for me is I'm going to be there too. Not at the museum, but, well, I will be at the museum. But July the 19th through the 21st is the 7th annual Mayberry Meetup in Mount Airy, North Carolina. And there's a registration page you can go to and sign up so we'll know who's coming. Now, the Mayberry Meetup, for those that don't know, was just started because I was going for the podcast to go and visit and interview Betty Lynn. Well, I said, hey, let's get together and do some stuff while we're there. And about 20 people decided to come. So this will be our 7th year of gathering there in Mount Airy, just to have a fun weekend of a whole bunch of Mayberry fans. Last year it was between 80 and 100 people, and we kind of expect a similar number this year possibly. And no matter how many there are, if there's 20 or 100, we're going to have a great time because we've got Betty Lynn on Friday the 19th. She's going to be our event for the day, really, for people to go and do. And then on Saturday, Neil Brower is going to be doing his lecture at the museum. So we've got things to do during the day, and then at night we get together and watch Andy Griffith Show under the stars and enjoy one another company. So definitely, if you get a chance, make time to come. It's a lot of fun. But there's all kinds of other events coming up as well. And of course, the big one, Mayberry Days in Mount Airy, North Carolina, in September. So if you can't make it to the meetup, make sure you try to make it to Mayberry Days. And don't not go to Mayberry Days because you came to the meetup, because Mayberry Days is an amazing event. And definitely included this year are concerts from Rodney Dillard and the Dillard Band and Leroy Mcneese. He'll be doing a concert there, as well as Karen Knott's doing a presentation of Deputy's Daughter at Mayberry Days in Mount Airy, North Carolina, September 23rd to the 29th. You can go to mayberrydays.com for tickets and all kinds of other information. And the last thing I'll mention that's on the calendar is November the 2nd through the 7th is the 14th Cruise to Mayberry. We're going this year, we're sailing with Ronnie Shell. He was on 2 episodes of the Andy Griffith Show. And Dixie Griffith, she's going with us as well, Andy's daughter. And a boatload of tribute artists and Elvis impersonator. We're going to Nassau and Half Moon Cay, selling out of Charleston, South Carolina, for a lot of fun. So try to make time to come to some of these things. They're great. All right. So let's go into a little bit of news and of cast and crew. Now, all this stuff is in the eBullet. Folks, it's free. You can sign up to get your free copy delivered to you every time it's released, every other month. All right. So here's a little bit of the news from cast and crew. Ron Howard, as usual, has many projects underway as director. He's wrapping up a post-production work on his Pavarotti documentary. It's set for release in theaters June the 7th by CBS Films. Ron is in the midst of pre-production work on both Hillbilly Elegy, in conjunction with Netflix and Ron's Imagine Entertainment, and the National Geographic documentary Rebuilding Paradise, about the aftermath and recovery of the 2018 fire disaster in Paradise, California. Ron's working on that. In addition, Ron is also currently slated to direct 68 Whiskey. It's a television movie being developed by Imagine and CBS Television. Ron's announced that he and other Imagine executives will be executive producers in partnership with NBA legend Dwayne Wade on a documentary about Wade's career. Wade planned ahead by making arrangements years ago for shooting behind-the-scenes footage of his life in addition to game footage. Wow, that'll be really cool. Ron's going to be working on that. Ron and Imagine are also developing the company's first Chinese language TV series, a sci-fi project called Mindscaping. So all of you Chinese-speaking Mayberry fans, hey, there may be a lot. I don't know that, but you can check this out. It's called Mindscaping. Imagine is also the company behind TV hits such as Empire, Arrested Development, for which Ron has served as the narrator. The second half of the final season is now streaming on Netflix. That's of Arrested Development. Wow, Ron, he just doesn't have anything to do, does he? Poor guy. Betty Lynn greeted fans in Mount Airy at the Andy Griffith Museum on March the 15th. And she's scheduled to be back the third Friday of each month again this year. So make plans for the third Fridays, as we mentioned in the calendar. You can be there. Rodney Dillard has mended well from a recent surgery and has already been back on the road. That's right. He was in Kingsport, Tennessee to participate in services earlier this month for Deputy Steve Hinkle, who was tragically killed in the line of duty in late February. Rodney sang "There Is a Time" at the service. Rodney also reunited with old pal John McEwen to perform with the String Wizards last week at the Folly Theater in Kansas City. And in the weeks ahead, Rodney and the Dillard Band are back on the truck for performances in Friendship, Tennessee, and Asheville, North Carolina. When in Las Vegas, since we're all heading to Vegas to do a little gambling or something, be sure to check out Maggie Peterson Mancuso and her can't say her name, Mancoso, and her husband Gus performing at the main dining room in the legendary Bootlegger Italian Bistro on Friday afternoons. And Maggie has several performance dates, including Mayberry Days coming up this year with TV brother figure Rodney Dillard, as well as other tax performers at the Mayberry in the Midwest, which we mentioned in the calendar section above. The beautiful oceanfront home of Jim Neighbors, who passed away. Jim's house sold for $12 million on January the 4th. The new owner has not been announced. So if it's you, feel free to invite us all to Hawaii. Wow, $12 million. Yeah, I don't think my house will get that. That's nice. Margaret Carey, who was Bess Muggins and Helen Scobie, she was a participant in the Annie Awards, the Oscar/Emmy for animation, at the UCLA Royce Hall back on February the 2nd. So good job, Margaret. Joy Ellison, she was Mary Wiggins and some other characters, has recently wrapped up dialect coaching for the upcoming films The Laundromat with Antonio Banderas and Jungle Land. She did both of those films. She does dialect coaching. I'm not going to pretend to tell you exactly what that is, but I know it has to do with coaching in dialects. You can't have this podcast without learning something. I'm telling you. I'm sure you just learned it. Hey, though Leroy Mcneese, who's a member of the Country Boys during 2 Andy Griffith Show episodes, he's officially retired. He still enjoys getting together with fellow musicians for occasional performances during Mayberry Days in September, as I mentioned earlier. And last month, closer to home in California, he got together with his group of friends who call themselves the Grateful Dudes. I think it's like the Grateful Dead. Yeah, Grateful Dudes. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good name. Leroy did good. Leroy's a great guy, by the way. Alan's commentary here. Definitely go and see Leroy if you get a chance. Hey, let me tell you something cool that happened. Michael Hoover and Laura Hagen, the wife of late Mayberry music maestro Earl Hagen, they performed at a fundraiser in Palm Springs for Women's Press Club back on March the 5th. There's a photo in the eBullet of the two of them. Isn't that cool? Michael Hoover. Now, if you don't know, Michael Hoover is an Elvis impersonator who has appeared at Mayberry Days for the last, I don't know, 18, 20 years. He's a great guy, huge fan of the Andy Griffith Show. So it's nice to see him getting to go and do his real Elvis work with some of the stars from the Andy Griffith Show. All right. Actress Nancy Stafford, who played Michelle on Matlock. If you watched Matlock, if you're an Andy fan, you probably watched Matlock. Michelle was, one of his, not really assistants. She was an attorney that worked with Matt. Remember that? Ben Matlock. And Oscar nominated screenwriter Nancy and Oscar nominated screenwriter Will Fetters, who wrote A Star Is Born, were the special guests for the 22nd annual George Lindsay UNA Film Festival, which straddled the end of February and the beginning of March. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. George Jr. was also participating. I don't remember seeing George there. But according to Jim, he was there, so I believe Jim. I was there. It was a great event, a lot of fun to be there. It's always fun to just help a little bit to support George Lindsay Film Festival because he put so much of his life into that just to keep that going. Now, folks, there's some information also in the eBullet. I'm not going to read it all because it's there for you to go and read, and Jim's words are very well done. I don't want to mess them up reading. But we are sad to report the passing of two actors from the Andy Griffith Show that had very memorable performances for their single episodes that they were in. Beyond Mayberry, both also had wonderful and long careers in the show business. Julie Adams passed away in Los Angeles on February the 3rd at the age of 92. In the title role of 1962 episode, The County Nurse, episode number 56 of the Andy Griffith Show, Julie captivated both Mayberry and the audience. In fact, Julie's portrayal of Nurse Mary Simpson likely ranks near the very top of favorite episodes for one episode appearances among the fans of the Andy Griffith Show. There's all kinds of information in this about Julie Adams. I'm not going to read it all. She was in so many movies, so many different things at her career she was blessed to do. Many people remember her from being in the Creature of the Black Lagoon that was released back in 1954, or you may not remember that girl in that white bathing suit was her, but it was. And she did so many different appearances over the years. I'm not going to read all of Jim's write-up. I encourage you to go over and check it out. But the one thing I do want to read is where Jim kind of wraps up at the end, where she talks a little about her time in the Andy Griffith Show. He says, about her time on the Andy Griffith Show, Julie wrote in her memoirs. Her memoirs are called The Lucky Southern Star, Reflections from the Black Lagoon by Julie Adams. She reflected in her memoirs, there was a kind of ease about it, talking about the Andy Griffith Show. Working with Andy and Don was a pleasure. The humor of the show was quite delicious. For the week I was there, they made me feel right at home in their Mayberry world. I feel fortunate to have been a part of it, if only for a little while. She added, it has been over 40 years since the show went off the air, yet the fans stay quite involved. It's quite rare that a TV show's audience remains loyal for that many years. I'm grateful that I share a small part of that legacy. So there's many other bits of information about Julie in here. The other person who passed away, and I think I may have mentioned it on a podcast already, was Joe Corolla. He played Freddie Fleet in the Mayberry Band, episode number 71. He passed away from complications of respiratory failure in New York City on February the 10th. He was 89 years old. There's a ton of information about him too, and I did not know a lot of it. Not only was he Freddie Fleet, the band leader, on the Andy Griffith Show, but he did all kinds of voiceover work. He was dubbed the king of voiceovers by the Wall Street Journal back in 1970. He did so much. He did voices for Wendy's, NyQuil, Vicks Formula 44. I don't know if you remember that cough medicine, but it was absolutely terrible. But he was the voice of it. Boar's Head Meats, Heinz, Mobil, Ford. He did voiceovers for all these things. General Electric, GE, and many other brands. It's estimated that Joe recorded more than 10,000 voiceovers. 10,000. Wow. He won 25 prestigious Clio Awards for his advertising work. He did so many things. I am not going to try to read through all this. Definitely go and check it out and read all about this amazing man who was our band leader there in Mayberry. Friends, there is so much more information in the eBullet. I am not even touching it all. It's so much here. Definitely go and check it out. I can tell you there have not been any new chapters that have begun in 2019. So far, we still are at 1,459 chapters of the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club that have been begun, that have started since 1979. So if you'd like to start a chapter, there is information in the eBullet about how to do that, and you can come up with a name. Also, all kinds of information about stuff that's for sale at Weaver's. Of course, I'm partial to that since that's us. Go and check out the eBullet and make sure you just check out all the great work that Jim Clark does for us all. It is absolutely amazing. So thank you, Jim, for not only putting it all together, but letting us share it here on the podcast, or letting me share it here on the podcast as well. All right, friends, as we get ready to start rolling out, we have still got to hear from Randy Turner from This Week in Mayberry History. So take it away, Randy.
Welcome to This Week in Mayberry History, a report by special correspondent Randy Turner of the Gomer and Cooper Pyle Comic Book Literary Guild of the Mayberry Historical Society.
Stanley Adams often played loud, pompous characters during his career, including once in Mayberry as Otis Campbell's abrasive brother, Ralph. Stanley was born on April the 7th, 1915 in New York City. He first appeared on television in an episode of the adventure series The Lone Wolf in 1954. That same year, he guest starred in 3 other series, including an episode of The Mickey Rooney Show. His appearance in Rooney's series likely came about because of his first film role, which he had filmed before the television appearance, playing the colorfully named Wildcat Hooper in the Mickey Rooney science fiction comedy The Atomic Kid, about a uranium prospector who becomes radioactive. As a bit of unrelated trivia, when Marty McFly time traveled to 1955 in Doc Brown's DeLorean in Back to the Future, the marquee of the Hill Valley Town Theater shows The Atomic Kid was playing. Stanley quickly became a go-to character actor for pompous or fast-talking characters, which were usually portrayed comically. He appeared in many series during the rest of the 1950s, including My Friend Flicka, The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis, and alongside Eleanor Donahue in Father Knows Best. He appeared frequently in anthology shows, such as Matinee Theater, Playhouse 90, and General Electric Theater. He played recurring characters in the comedy series, The Adventures of Hiram Holiday, the Army drama, Not for Hire, and the Roaring Twenties crime drama, The Lawless Years. He also had small parts in 19 films during this time, including an uncredited role in Alfred Hitchcock's North by Northwest, and playing a bar owner in the biopic of the famed drummer, The Gene Krupa Story, both in 1959. While he stayed busy as an actor, Stanley also was a successful writer. After he had acted in a March 1955 episode of the anthology show The Ford Television Theater, he wrote a teleplay for an episode of the same show, which aired in November. The next year, he wrote an episode of the comedy series, It's Always Jan, which was created by Artie Stander, who wrote the pilot for The Andy Griffith Show and 4 of the first 12 episodes of the series. In 1961, Stanley had his best-known film role as Rusty Trawler in the film Breakfast at Tiffany's. The classic was directed by Blake Edwards, who had written The Atomic Kid. In the next to the last episode of the Andy Griffith Show's second season, Stanley appeared as Otis's brother in the episode Deputy Otis. Stanley was abrasive and did not believe Otis had stopped drinking, which Andy had agreed to pretend to be the case in order to save Otis's dignity after he had led his brother to believe he was a deputy. Stanley wrote more frequently during the 1960s. He wrote 7 episodes of Mr. Ed and wrote for other series, including Daniel Boone and Love American Style. He also wrote a 1969 episode of Star Trek, but not before playing his most memorable television role in that same series. In 1967, Stanley played intergalactic peddler Cyrano Jones in the original Star Trek series classic and fan favorite, The Trouble with Tribbles. Stanley reprised the role in an episode of the follow-up animated series titled More Tribbles, More Troubles. Stanley bridged the decade writing 4 episodes in 1969 and 1970 of The Flying Nun. He continued writing and acting into the next decade, despite suffering a painful back injury early in the decade that plagued him the rest of his life. He wrote the 1974 forgotten film Homegrown. He also wrote 2 episodes of Mannix and acted in 4 other episodes of that series. During the 70s, he also appeared in series such as Adam 12, The Odd Couple, and Police Story. Sadly, the painful back injury which caused Stanley constant pain made him so despondent that he took his own life in April 1977. His final appearance was in the western The Great Gundown, which was released the August after he died. Well, that's it for this week. As always, thanks for listening, and remember to take Andy's advice and go out there and act like somebody.
Wow, thank you, Randy. I didn't know any of that about Stanley Adams. If you want to make sure you don't miss out on all the great stuff that Randy's doing out on the internet and all this great information, send him an email at turnersgrade@gmail.com, turnersgrade@gmail.com, and he'll make sure you don't miss any of it. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I did not know about the Atomic Kid. So Randy told us that it was in the Back to the Future movie, and sure enough, I was able to find an image of it. It was playing on the marquee when the fire was on the road, as the DeLorean disappeared in the old Back to the Future. That was right square in front of you, the Atomic Kid. Wow, thank you, Randy. It is always great, the information that you provide to us. Folks, I hope you have been enjoying this podcast and enjoy the eBullet. So go and check out the eBullet. Now, if you don't know how to get there, just go over to imayberry.com. And when you get there, there's a link right at the top of the page for the eBullet. You can't miss it. And you can sign up and you can make sure you get a copy delivered to you in your email inbox. And you won't have to wait on me to read it to you. And you can read all the other stuff. So, folks, thank you so much for being a part of Mayberry. I would love to hear from you. You can give me a call at 888-684-8415, or you can email me at floyd@imayberry.com. I'd love to hear from you. Get out there and have a great Mayberry week, and we'll see you next time right here on Two Chairs.